Locked On Podcast Network presents Locked On Sports Today.
It was the most anticipated Summer League debut since, we've had enough Victor Wembanyama hyperbole, but it was a big dang deal. So how did he do? Plus, the NBA is copying the NCAA tournament and European soccer, and a group of amateur baseball players just had their lives change forever. Who shocked us in the 2023 Major League Baseball Draft? I'm Peter Bukowski, starting your day with the can't-miss stories and biggest debates in sports. You're Locked On Sports Today.
Searching all major sports. Found.
Let's start with the biggest story.
On Friday night, Victor Wembanyama made his NBA debut, sort of, at Summer League, in front of a sold-out crowd. But in 27 minutes, he went 2 for 13. It was not the best offensive performance, at least, but we saw the flashes. Then on Sunday, he goes out and almost leads the Spurs all the way back to beat the Portland Trailblazers with 27 and 12 on 9 of 14 shooting, including 2 of 4 from behind the arc. Jeff Garcia joins me now. And Jeff, we talked last week about setting reasonable expectations.
Sure.
And you were very level-headed about this.
Yeah.
Did you stay level-headed after Friday, though?
He's a bust. I thought he was a bust. After one game, the number one pick is a bust. No, that tempered expectations. Again, you factor in he got perhaps some sleep. He wasn't in a rush to gel with some teammates he just met. And you throw in the fact that, his basketball IQ is pretty good. He's catching on little by little. And what I liked about the game versus the Blazers was that he asserted himself. We saw that, the willingness to want to. I'll take the three. I will go to the rim. Sure, the bad side was shown a lot. He needs to add some strength. A couple times, the players are just come and rip the ball from him. And, okay, bye, Wemby. See you later. We're going this way. You also saw, too, the other negative was when he was driving to the rim and clearly could have had dunked on somebody, but they body him and then move out of position. But that'll come in time. What you finally saw right now is exactly what he can become. You temper it too. Look, if I tempered it the last time, I'll temper it again. It is Summer League, okay? And this is not NBA level yet. And these are probably not the teammates he's going to go to war with when the regular season starts. We'll see if he can duplicate this again. But for sure, absolutely a great performance by Wemby. Wasn't shy, was being assertive, as I mentioned. And can we just talk about that defense?
Yeah.
That's going to be instant. The moment he steps on the NBA court for a regular season game, I've been on Locked On Spurs saying this team has the potential to be a top 10, top 5 defensive team. Yeah. Just with him, Sohan, Trey Jones, if he's still around and he's not traded, but if he's just starting point guard, can we throw in Keldon Johnson as well? Zach Collins? This team might be one of the more difficult teams to score on next season, but that's in big part to Wemby.
Yeah, had 3 blocks officially, but you could just see how many times he impacted a play where a player has to throw a pass a little higher than they want to or a little wider than they want to, alterations at the rim. It's not just the shot blocking. And to your point, if you're going to stay level-headed after the bad game, you have to stay level-headed after the good game too. Were there things that you felt like, other than the assertiveness, that we saw on Sunday that we didn't get to see on Friday? Parts of his game where you went, oh, that's cool that he got the opportunity to show that. That gives me a little bit of excitement about that thing.
The one intangible I did like was a little bit more passion, a little bit more, willingness. Like, I'm here. You saw, I don't know how he flexed because I don't see any muscle on him, but he flexed. He did a flex, in front of the crowd. Love that. I love the fact that he was really engaging with his teammates, really directing them. I like that he was very vocal. On the stat sheet, again, I like that he did take more opportunities for himself. In the game one, I thought he was deferring a little bit too much. Yeah. We're really looking for his teammate. That's fine. That's good. I'm like that's good.
He made some nice passes in that game, I thought.
He made some nice passes. But in game two, you saw him want the ball. You saw him take the shots. You saw him drive and try to finish at the rim versus drive, as we saw in game one, and then dish out. All in all, just a great game from Wemby. Again, temper the expectations. This is Summer League, but if this is your foundation, if this is the foundation we're going to be carrying into preseason training camp and into the first month of the regular season, yeah, Spurs fans should be very excited what's ahead for him.
Keep up with Wemby and the Spurs by subscribing to Locked On Sports today and Locked On Spurs on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube. Thanks for making Locked On Sports today your first listen. Coming up, the NBA is adding a playoffs to the regular season. Before we get to that, a Big Ten football coach is in big trouble over hazing. Take your first swing at betting Major League Baseball on FanDuel and getting 10 times your first bet in bonus bets up to $200. That's right, just bet $20 and you'll land $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. That's $200 you can spend betting everything from the money line to the point totals to who you think is going to hit the first home run. Let's take a look at some World Series futures odds as we head toward the All-Star break. The Atlanta Braves are the favorites at plus 360, but I love the defending champion Astros at 10-1. And keep an eye on those fighting Phils. They're at 27-1. Those odds are juicy. You can also combine multiple prop bets in a single game for a bigger payout with FanDuel Same Game Parlay, all on an app that's safe and secure, super easy to use. Plus, when you win, you get paid instantly. There's no better place to bet on Major League Baseball than FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. So sign up today and visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get up to $200 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon. FanDuel, official partner of Major League Baseball. Northwestern suspended head football coach Pat Fitzgerald over hazing allegations, but the university president said harsher punishment could be coming. Although Fitzgerald denies the allegation and former players have come to the Wildcat alum's defense, the Northwestern student newspaper published troubling accounts from a former player who suggested sexualized hazing occurred that either Fitzgerald knew about or, in their opinion, should have known about. University President Michael Schill sent a letter late Saturday night to the Northwestern community saying this very thing and admitted he may have erred in such a light 2-week suspension. He wrote, "In determining an appropriate penalty for the head coach, I focused too much on what the report concluded he didn't know and not enough on what he should have known." For the first time ever, Pebble Beach hosted the U.S. Women's Open, and 25-year-old American Allison Corpus shot a virtuoso final round 69 to claim her first major title, 3 shots clear of the field. Corpus is a former teen phenom from Hawaii who broke fellow Hawaii native Michelle Wie West's record as the youngest woman ever to qualify for the U.S. Women's Amateur Pub Links. Fitting then, as this was the swan song for Wie West, a trailblazer in her own right, as she said goodbye to the professional women's game. On the diamond, the Cubs beat the Yankees, who fired their hitting coach as they sputtered toward the break.
Cubs win a thriller and the series in the Bronx in New York. Coming into this series, the Cubs have never won a game in Yankee Stadium, but they won 2 this weekend and won the series on Sunday, trailing 4-1 going into the 7th inning. They rallied with the help of a Gleyber Torres error and a huge pinch hit clutch 2-run single to tie the game by Yan Gomes. And then in the 8th inning, they took the lead with a Seiya Suzuki sac fly and a wild pitch, and they were able to add on late and hold on 7-4 to win the series. It had been a very roller coaster, weird up and down first half for the Cubs. They still have a little bit of life left, trailing the Cincinnati Reds by 7 games. They'll open up the second half in a must-win stretch, 9 straight home games before the deadline to determine if they're going to be, I would say buyers is out of the question, but sellers or standing pat. So we'll see what happens, but the Cubs do cap off the first half in a nice way with a series win in New York.
And the Padres got another series win heading into the All-Star break, this one against the Mets.
They did it. They won another series in a row. Can you believe it? Javier Reyes here, Locked On Padres podcast. As you know, Padres win this one, 6-2, behind Joe Musgrove, giving them the series win against the Mets overall, aside from a Friday game that had a bunch of extra innings and weird stuff, bullpen stuff, whatever, blah, 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 and Ha-Seong Kim getting thrown out. Pretty good series for the Friars overall. I mean, Musgrove was great, Blake Snell, excellent. One of the more, quote-unquote, standout snubs from the All-Star game because of how obscene his strikeout rate has been and the fact that he's given up maybe like 2 runs in total over the last, 3 months it feels like. But no, seriously, really good series for the Padres. Really good series for Manny Machado. He hits 2 home runs in his third game off of Max Scherzer, so that was really rad. Hopefully he can start making up for a genuinely atrocious start to the season in the second half. So pretty good game for the Padres to close out the break before the All-Star festivities. And the question is whether or not they can keep it going. And if they don't keep it going, will the team buy anyway?
The NBA is an international league after all. So why not borrow from international soccer and have a mid-season tournament? It works in football, so why not have it in basketball? Nick Angstad from Locked On NBA and, of course, Locked On Mavericks. I can't wait to tell Kyrie Irving he's got to play more basketball games. Joins us now from the Summer League floor to try and figure out what's going on with this mid-season tournament. And Nick, for those who have not been in the weeds with all of this, and it is not the most straightforward thing ever created by God or man, can you just explain what this midseason tournament is going to be?
Yeah, like you said, I'm in the bowels of Summer League right now. It's happening, and the talk has been about Victor Wembanyama. But if there's a secondary talk, it's been this midseason tournament idea. Adam Silver announced it yesterday and made a big deal about it at NBA Con. And the midseason tournament is basically this: it's like you said, a lot of these European soccer leagues do around the world, where in the middle of the year you'll have these games that for the NBA will count as regular season games. They'll play a couple of, I think, 4 games where this game counts as a regular season game, but it also counts towards your record towards this midseason tournament. So you're put in this group, you play all those teams at least once, and then whoever has the best record out of that will move on to a knockout stage. And then there's this knockout stage where then there will be some extra games eventually there once you get to the end and the championship. And then I think for fans, like you said, they won't understand the initial part because it is a little convoluted to try and figure out, okay, well, is this game a midseason tournament game? Is it not a midseason tournament game? That's going to be a little bit of an issue. But then once you get into these knockout games and you know that single elimination, win or go home, and there's going to be a championship trophy, I think people will care eventually. And so this is the NBA just trying to, all right, let's try and boost these mid-season games that aren't getting a lot of love right now. People don't really care about basketball until kind of after Christmas. Christmas seems to start the beginning of the NBA season. So can we get it to where people care about something at least before that?
So I understand the premise of wanting the fans to try and care. When you say people, I assume you mean the fans. Can you explain to me how we're going to get the NBA players to care? Because I don't know. How are they going to care?
No, I wasn't just saying fans. I was literally saying the players and
right,
fans
okay,
as
everybody.
well, because people are players are load managing throughout the beginning of the season as well. And so to get them to try and play some more games, to put some more meaning behind it, there is a prize pool of money, there is a trophy, and what they've done in internationals, like in soccer and overseas and things like that, is they've had these tournaments for years and years and years. So just internally, they have this value to it. The NBA, I don't know
they're
how
important
you can
because they're important.
Put this in and say, all right, we're going to just inject. They're important. Yeah. And I was talking to Howard Beck about this last night, and I was just saying, well, doesn't the championship in the NBA just inherently we say it's important and so it's important? Isn't this the exact same thing? And he's like, well, but that's been around forever. I was like, well, it started somewhere, right? Like it started somewhere. It's just a trophy. They get some extra money because of the playoff pool and all that kind of stuff, but it is just a trophy. We put rings culture all over it because we put importance to it. It's the same thing with this. It's going to come down to the players. Same thing with the All-Star. Remember a couple years ago, the All-Star game was awesome because KD and LeBron looked at each other and said, hey, can we make this awesome again? And then they did, and it was a really good game. And then they've lost that. They lost the plot in the All-Star game over the course of the couple of years. So there will be some good moments. There will be some moments where you're like, why are we doing this? There will be some moments where your team loses a game and you'll go, oh, wait, that was a midseason tournament game that affected us. But just to have a couple extra single elimination NBA games to play for something, if the players decide to care, if they look across the court and say, oh, I don't want that guy to beat me, then they'll care eventually, just like they do in any competition. These are the most competitive people in the world. Maybe they'll get it, or maybe it'll just be some more extra basketball. It is what it is.
The last thing here is you mentioned soccer, and this is, of course, what soccer fans are going to look at this and go, this is a soccer thing. They've been doing this forever. What we see is, especially the big clubs, they put out their B squad. The farm team is who goes out there and play. Do you think we will see teams take a similar approach? Like, hey, let's go get some of our young guys, some championship level guys, championship level teams say, hey, we're, the Nuggets. Jokic doesn't have to play 40 minutes in round 1 of the midseason tournament.
That's going to be our signal if these players care or not, right? Like that's what's going to be. They won't do that for the regular season games because those count as regular season games anyway, but they also already do that in the regular season sometimes. Right. Say, all right, well, we don't have to play. So it'll just depend on if players care or not, and we'll know right away. I think it could happen, but if you start to see some B squads out there for these, these extra games that they'll be playing, the actual knockout round and then the championship, then Adam Silver is a little toast, because then this whole thing is just not working at all, and they'll have to rethink it, which the NBA has done. They did an award show for a while and they scrapped it. They've done all kinds of stuff. They've tried things. They're just trying stuff out, and they're not afraid of failure, and they're just trying something new to see if they can boost some life into the midseason of the NBA.
Stay up to date on the biggest stories around the NBA by subscribing to Locked On Sports today and Locked On NBA on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube. Coming up, who is the talk of the Major League Baseball draft?
Paul Skeens, 6'6", goes to the Pirates at number 1. The question here, Jeff, and I've heard people ask the question about, how quickly would he get to MLB? I think if you were competitive, there would be a case or a scenario where you could try him in the bullpen this year. But since they're not as competitive right now, I honestly kind of think the thing you should do here with Paul Skeens is you should probably shut him down for the rest of the year because he's thrown so much. But next year, I think I'm looking at bringing him in AA to start the year. I'm sorry, AA to start the year, simply because he is so much more advanced than we expect. Again, I think he's the best college pitcher since Steven Strasburg, that kind of level of dominance. If you're the Pirates, what do you do with Paul Skeens right now?
You shut him down.
You shut him down?
Everything he's done. I agree. Everything you said is 100% dead on. You shut him down. You let that arm rest. That arm has seen so much work this year. We talked about the risk. And then next year, you start him in AA and you give him that route. You give him that quick route because it's a special arm. It's easily the best one we have seen in so long. Like I said, it is since Strasburg, who, if you weren't someone who was following it then, he was the most hyped prospect I'd ever seen. And that was the year, I'm going to get myself wrong on this, I believe that was the year after Bryce Harper, but I could be wrong there. But he was the biggest hype we've had, and he, I think you shut him down, and then you give him to AA, and he can be ready to help that young core very quickly.
Yeah, so for context, what Paul Skeens did this year, 19 starts, 12-2, 1.69 ERA, and 122 2/3 innings. Struck out 209 batters, so 15.3 per 9, walked 20, so 1.5 walks per 9, 7 home runs allowed. And this was the first year that he was not a two-way player. At Air Force, he had 150 at-bats last year, 189 in 21, and did really well. Batted .314 last year with 13 home runs. But this is something where he hit another level as a pitcher.
And finally, on the latest episode of One Life to LIV Live, a PGA Tour Policy Board member resigned as a result of concerns over the proposed partnership with the Saudi National Wealth Fund. Former AT&T chairman Randall Stevenson said he could not support the investment from the Public Investment Fund over concerns about the Saudi Arabian regime, especially the alleged role in the killing of journalist Jamal Khashoggi. The PGA said the CEO of this new joint venture between the tour and the PIF would be the PIF's current governor, Yasir Al-Rumayyan, giving the PIF a direct hand in leadership. Thanks for making Locked On Sports today your first listen. Now go find your favorite team's Locked On podcast and make them your second listen. Coming up tomorrow, what team needs the All-Star break the most? So at least until tomorrow, stay Locked On Sports today.
Locked On Podcast Network presents Locked On Sports Today.
For more episodes of Locked On Sports Today, go to our video on demand. Click on Sports at the top of your screen. There, you'll find past episodes of Locked On Sports Today, plus other Locked On shows on demand.